also covers for persons with disabilities, inclusivity, and refugees. So as we sit down to have this conversation, some of the questions will slip in. How do we fund and grow education technology solutions in Uganda so they reach every learner, they reach every teacher, and every school? I will start with you, Charlotte. This is not going to be as wide as it should be. In like one sentence as we kickstart the show. What is Uganda's biggest opportunity in education technology today?
I think our biggest opportunity as Ugandans lies largely in the power of young people that we have. I think when you look at our population, half of our population is comprised of young people, and they have so many great ideas. And having worked with young people for a very long time and still working with young people, I believe that there's a lot of creative ideas that they bring to the table. And if we invest in young people, definitely the future is bright.
Ben, would you react the same way?
Yes, I believe so. The only thing that would also want to add is that I think the current educational reforms, which actually brought about the launch of the competency-based curriculum. I think that is an opportunity because we are not only looking at learning theoretically, but also going into practical learning, but also exploring science, technology, engineering, and many other things. So I think that is a huge opportunity for innovators out there to be able to create solutions and see how we can be able to tap into that market and also contribute to what the government is already doing.
Laura, where is the opportunity?
In the youth. I would like to resonate with Charlotte and Ben. And I would also like to add that we've already seen that the youth are really innovative. They have the ideas, they have the solutions, they know the challenges that they're currently facing. But it's also evident that they cannot do this on their own. So it requires collaboration amongst different players in the ecosystem for them to be able to thrive.
Now, as we kickstart, our major focus is going to be the entire thing almost, and that is about funding. And clearly to mention to fund and grow education technology solutions in Uganda, we must first address the funding gap. That's very, very important. I'll start again with you, Laura. What makes an edtech solution attractive to investors and funders? Why they be interested?
I would say that the solution should be able to address the needs or the challenges that are being faced by the communities. And by this, they need to be able to show how they're actually addressing this challenge. So the investor is only going to be interested in partnering with an edtech solution provider that is addressing that need. So if you're not able to prove with data what the challenge is and how your solution is going to address that need, there might be a mismatch in that regard.
Ben, if we bridge that, many innovators, of course, have very many good ideas. What is the biggest challenge in turning those ideas into sustainable solutions? While we walk into the area of funding, could that be the biggest challenge, and how would you talk about the same?
Yes, I would believe so. I think one of the biggest challenges that we see is actually failing to prove evidence or impact, right? Because education space is actually quite so different from other sectors like fintech, medtech, or agri-tech. It requires that from ideation stage to a point where your solution actually has proven concept or impact. It takes actually quite some time. So most of the times, the innovators fail within that space because investors are actually more interested. First, is your solution having the real impact? And then afterwards, does your solution have the profitability, before you can actually go to scale? So I think that is where the challenges are.
So would we say, Charlotte, would we say that to ensure funding improves learning outcomes and technology and adoption, there are certain things that have to be done? So how do we ensure that funding improves learning? Because funding is one thing, but then improving learning might be another thing, and the outcomes might be another thing, and not just technology adoption.
Yeah. Before I answer that question, I would also like to answer the question that you asked Laura. So apart from, this edtech solution addressing the need, it also needs to be cost-effective and scalable, because I think most investors are looking for solutions that can address the need, but also can easily be scaled across. So when you look at currently the needs within the education space, obviously there's a lot of talk around the need to be able to integrate technology within the teaching and the learning process. And many of the universities and the schools are really adopting this and taking it up. However, technology cannot be used in isolation. So you will always need a teacher. And so technology comes in to be able to support, the teacher to be able to deliver effectively. And so in the absence of the teacher, technology might not actually, be impactful. And so that's why there's need for teacher training, right? While these tools are being developed, it's one thing to fund the tools, to fund these solutions, but the teachers themselves need to be trained to be able to use those tools, first of all, appreciate them, and then be able to use them to deliver effective teaching and learning. However, the challenges we are seeing in the schools is that while we are talking about uptake of technology, teachers are still lagging behind in terms of, one, developing a positive mindset towards technology, but also improving their skills, becoming tech savvy. You find that they have smartphones, but they can't actually use them to be able to, expand on their teaching, or even use them to sort of accelerate the learning outcomes of kids. So if technology is going to be useful, I believe that, one, it has to be used in collaboration or in tandem with the teacher, and the teacher must be trained on this technology if it's going to have an impact on the learner. And that training has to be continuous because technology is continuously evolving.
Laura, under the same conversation, let's talk about scaling nationally. Which partnerships do you think can help local innovations go ahead to scale nationally?
I think it involves all the stakeholders in the ecosystem. So firstly, if the investors that will come in and give us investment capital for these edtech solutions to thrive, government needs to create an enabling environment through policies, but also through the infrastructure that we need to be able to scale these edtech solutions. But besides that, the schools themselves or the learning institutions should be willing to test, champion, and adapt these solutions because they are the number one consumers of these solutions. So even government, after the policies and even through public procurement reforms, they can suggest to all maybe schools to purchase from local edtech solutions, because then that would help them also be sustainable and reduce on the donor dependency. Yeah.
Let's talk about accessibility and area. What will it take for edtech to reach every district in Uganda?
I think we could look at it in two dimensions. First is from the developer's point of view. I think as developers or innovators, from the word go, we can actually optimize certain functionalities to be offline. Yeah, so if you go to my village, let's say Moro district, where there's poor connectivity, if the platform or the app is actually built in a way that there's certain key functionalities that can actually be accessed without internet, I think that will really help so much. And then on the other hand, I think we need to see how the government or the private sector can also be able to invest in the infrastructure. So that includes, of course, the connectivity, but also beyond that, to make internet actually affordable. Because right now, let's say if you're watching a content, you might require about 1 GB of data. Now, 1 GB of data is about 2,000 Uganda shillings. So imagine a learner in the rural area who probably surviving under $2 a day. How will they be able to access such content? So that means if we can be able to lower the cost of internet accessibility, that is actually going to enable the technologies to be actually more accessible in these rural areas.
Let's move into an area, and I would like us to talk about where we are missing out on acquiring funds that will go to persons with disabilities, persons who are challenged that way, because their area, if you're going to create an edtech solution and you have to grow it, you would require a lot of funding. You'd require a lot of funding. Where are we missing out? where should we start by addressing this, and how can we bridge the gap so that we are on the same platform of learning? I think, Laura, if you can be able to take it up.
I think where we are missing the gap is, first of all, I want to point to the current opportunities that are available. Yeah. For example, through the MasterCard Foundation in collaboration with the Hive Collab, they are implementing so many solutions that are supporting EdTech solution startups. So the people, the providers that are building these solutions, are they aware of opportunities like this? Because there is funding, there is mentorship, there is market opportunities and support. So they need to also be in the network of where these opportunities are. But also to the providers of these opportunities, how far are they sharing this information? For example, the last person, let's say in Lira, who is building this beautiful solution that is meant to address a challenge in school, how does that person get to know of this particular opportunity that is being offered by investors? So I think it's a point of outreach in terms of the receiver being the EdTech solution provider looking out for these particular opportunities, but also the providers being able to target and reach the last person down there that needs this opportunity. And I think this can basically be done through the different stakeholders, government, of course, being the main one, because they are present everywhere, but also just being a part of a network of, and also speaking about your work in terms of what you do, and also using like different platforms like social media to share more about your work. Then somebody would see it and then suggest an opportunity that can help you scale.
And once again, thanks very much for staying with us. EdTech Mondays brought to you by the MasterCard Foundation. Our theme topic of discussion rotating around funding and growing EdTech solutions in Uganda. Not a very easy subject to conclude, because making an innovation at the same time to find funding is not very easy. To find a solution at the same time to find funding is not easy. To sustain it and put it on a different level is also quite challenging. We've been having the discussion up to this very level. And well, I thought while we still have two on the previous panel, and that is Charlotte and Ben, we could also get into the space of Nakaje Susan, who is going to tell us on how it is challenging with the organization that she works with, want to acquire funding, how to grow the same, and also does she have any education solutions that we should benchmark on. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
So for the first people, the people who are meeting you for the first time, where are you from?
Nakaje Susan, co-founder at Visual Assistance Initiative Limited. We develop AI-enabled learning technologies for the visually impaired, and we are having a blind assistant reading kit that enables the visually impaired read ordinary printed text just like any other sighted person can.
Let's go to what we've been discussing throughout, and you've been part of the conversation.
Yes.
And that's before Laura stepped away. Funding.
Yes.
Finding funding for a solution of that magnitude, because this is a very huge solution, especially for the visually impaired. What challenges do you find to find funding?
The challenges we find, one of the sources would be the sale of the device as one of the sources of funding. However, remember the end users, they are the vulnerable groups. So we find that we have to look for extra sources of funding apart from the end user.
Apart from the Uganda Communications Commission, do you have any other partners that have come through to help you with that?
We are really glad. We merged one of the 12 winners in the MasterCard Foundation EdTech Fellowship, where we are going to scale up and reach more schools where we've not been and implement this product.
That's good. Thank you very much. It's EdTech Mondays brought to you by the MasterCard Foundation. And our discussion, as it is still powered by the MasterCard Foundation through the Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning under the Young Africa Works strategy. Across Uganda, innovators go ahead to build solutions that transform teaching, learning, and skills development The question tonight remains, how do we fund and grow education technology solutions that reach every learner, every teacher, and every school in Uganda? We have time for your questions, answers, and opinions. Let's hear more.
One of the things that has constantly stood out when it comes to innovation and creativity for education, it has always been the digital divide. The other challenge has been also designing for our local context. Most of our content is in English, and the largest number of the learners and communities that we work with understand in the local languages. When I was having a conversation with Susan earlier on, one of the challenges they're struggling with is translating the language that the AI uses for the locals to fully understand and relate with this translation that they are making. And so it leaves me with the question that how do we continually iterate and then create for the last end user, and then bring this last end user on the table while we create? And then how do we get the funders to equally understand that innovation in education is different? The metrics are measured over years, and these are human beings. So if you want to innovate for someone in P1 and you want to see that it is working, you might probably wait for the metrics to come to life when they're in P7. And then you know that, oh, what we did in primary 1, it has supported them to reach this level of achievement in learning. So my ask is that the funders be a little patient with the education innovators, because the metrics are measured over a very wide period of time. Thank you.
On the discussions on board, I'd like to first of all thank our tech innovators. My discussion will center entirely on persons with disabilities. We are at a point of where we don't want to leave anyone behind. And I'll actually align my discussion with actually Dina was also talking about of putting the end user in mind, but also as you put the end user in mind, you need to know that end user exactly. I liked what Ben was sharing, that at first they thought persons with disabilities are only those ones with wheelchairs, but it goes beyond that, and disability is diverse. It's actually diverse, and every disability requires possibly a different approach towards helping a person with a diverse disability. And also, when we talk about disability, there is also severity. There are disabilities that are slightly mild, and there are those that are severe. So as you're designing a solution to support persons with disabilities, you need to put that in mind.
Sean, on this topic that you ask, funding and scale up, I wish you had the government here. I wish you had someone in the political wing, because then I'd have a question for them. Because when you talk about funding and scale, and you look at the bottlenecks that we currently have, I think the government has a big hand in it. We've seen the funding space shrink, especially because of our policies. If the issue of policies, for instance, was a bit flexible and we didn't make it any difficult for donors to give us money, this would help the scale up come up quickly. I have seen them waiver taxes for things that are, in other words, interesting. Why wouldn't they waiver taxes for a product, for instance, like Susan has come up with, so that all the people who are differently abled are able to access some of these things? Look at our internet costs. I think we are rated amongst one of those countries with the heaviest costs when it comes to internet. This is going to frustrate innovation. This is going to frustrate people who would have, come up with some of this tech and so on. So I think when we talk about funding and scale, the government needs to step in and either subsidize some of these things, but also address issues of behavior change. I mean, you've seen when 5G, for instance, came up, people who thought, they've brought us cancer, they've brought us sickness. So we might benefit from behavior change conversations for people to welcome tech, for people to know that AI is not going to take their jobs, but we can actually benefit from it and grow. My name is Fortunate Kagumaho, and I work with Teach for Uganda.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Salutations. I'm called Nina Mutesi and a talented groundbreaker. Talent. I am a co-founder at Simu with Sitati Patience. And my question as a young innovator would be, there are all these people that are approaching us. Yeah. They're telling us, you do this, do this. Give me your innovation. I know I'm from this office. I'm from the president's office. I can do this and this for you. You get? I can give you funding. I can give you this. But in actual sense, after you have written your proposal, after you've written down everything, you've demonstrated how and what your source code, you put it there and everything, they're nowhere to be seen. So as panelist, as a young innovator, I am already demoralized. Help me understand how I can, divert or not be able to fall into this trap. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we need to be wise. The Bible says that we should be as, wise as serpents, right? And also gentle as doves. So even as we create our EdTech innovations, we need to know that there are people out there who will come under the guise of, wanting to support your work, and yet they actually want to steal your innovation. So you need to be careful. And that's why you don't provide everything, I think when somebody says, I want to fund you, one, do research about them, get to know who they are. Do they have a website? Do they, so get all the information you need about them before you can entrust them with your innovation. That would be my simple advice.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for staying with us, and your contributions across our social media platforms are very important. We'd like to get feedback from you so that we can not only scale the show, but we also grow with you in huge numbers and ideas as we try making this world a better place through education and technology. Proudly brought to you by the Mastercard Foundation. We'd like to say thanks to all the panelists that came through, and we'd like to say thanks to the audience that participated, they that took some time to lay back and listen, learn. That is very, very important. EdTech Mondays brought to you by the Mastercard Foundation, the Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning. Thank you for watching NTV. I'm Sean Chimori.
EdTech Mondays is brought to you by the Mastercard Foundation in partnership with NTV Uganda.